Hey guys, how's it going? Gilly here from the Retro Oasis, and today we have a review with the first impressions of the new RG353P. This is a new retro handheld console from Anbernic that looks very good and very nostalgic, so let's check it out. Welcome to the Oasis. Just to let you guys know, this is the first handheld console that Anbernic sent to me for review. No one from the company have seen or approved this content before I uploaded. The opinions you see here are my own and my own only. The idea is to make videos being as impartial as possible. My comments and thoughts will be like I bought this console with my own money. Okay, let's start with the unboxing. And we have a colorful box, something that we don't see very often on Anbernic consoles, or even Pau Kitty. We have the handheld, of course, USB cable for charging, a screen protector for the display, the wipes, and the manual that also came in color. And this piece of paper is actually very helpful. It has a list of shortcuts for the Linux operating system. Very handy. And here we have the RG353P. This is just a first impressions video, so I'm not gonna go into details about the hardware. I'll leave that for the in-depth review I'm doing for this device. Keep an eye for it. Just one thing that I want to mention, this one comes with the Rockchip 3566, the successor of the 2633 that has been in the market for quite some time, and we have several devices with this previous chip. And the first Anbernic console with this chip was this one, the RG503. I also have a first impressions video of this device here on the channel if you want to check it out. And the first thing I noticed in this handheld is how nostalgic it is the fact that it's made to look like a Super Nintendo controller. A while back there was a device that was released that looked like a Super Nintendo controller. It was the Pocket Go S30. But unfortunately I don't have this handheld. But I do have this controller here, the SN30 Pro from 8-bit though. This gamepad is pretty much the same size of a Super Nintendo controller, so we can have an idea about the size. And yes, I did love the design. I love how it looks, and as I mentioned, it's very nostalgic. It really feels like you're holding a bigger Super Nintendo controller. I had people asking me if there was going to be another version available, the European version with the colored buttons. I think it would be nice to have that option. But growing up, I had the US version of the Super Nintendo, so this color here is very fitting for me. Another thing I noticed right away holding the device is how comfortable it is. It's light years better than Anbernic's previous devices. The rounded sides here fits perfectly in your hands. And it's very easy to use the thumbstick here on the right and the shoulder buttons without forcing too much your wrist. Very comfortable. Very different from other Anbernic devices. Here I have the RG351P. That was my first retro handheld device. And I always had some trouble using the analog sticks and the shoulder buttons at the same time. My hands are pretty big and I can reach the shoulder buttons with no issues. It's just the position my hand gets when I reach these buttons. I feel a bit of a strain in my wrist. And I think it gets in the way when I try to play for an extended period of time. They improved the ergonomy a bit with the 503 when they made the sides here more rounded. It does fit better in your hands. But I also have the same problem using the thumbstick and reaching for the shoulder buttons. There's quite a distance between them. I think it's better with this model, more rounded and more comfortable. Another thing, the right thumbstick is a little bit to the left. It's not really aligned with the face buttons. So when you use these buttons, there's no chance for the thumbstick to get in the way. With the 503 here, even with the thumbstick being a bit recessed, the thumbstick and the face buttons are aligned. So there's still a possibility for your thumb to hit this stick. Of course, it's nothing compared with the Game Sir X3 for example. If you press X or A, you'll hit the thumbstick for sure. Let's have a quick look of the layout. We have the D-pad here, the two analog sticks, same used on the Nintendo Switch, select button, start button, function button, power button, A, B, X, Y. On top, the 4 shoulder buttons, and I love they're stacked. On the 503 in previous devices they are inline, and despite the 503 having the L2 and R2 a bit more raised to help you touching them without hitting R1 and L1, the 353 have better access and it's more comfortable. Still up here, we have a USB-C for peripherals, reset button, HDMI out, volume buttons, and a USB-C for charging. On the bottom, we have the 2 stereo speakers, 2 microSD card slots, TF1 internal for your Linux OS and system files, and TF2 external where you're gonna load your games, and a headphone jack. On the back, we have the Anbernic logo, the model number, and some battery info, and the 2 rubber grips to help you keep the console in place when you're playing. On the previous models, they are rectangular. Remember the first impressions video I did for the 503? I showed there was some dust accumulated on these buttons. It looks like when you press them, they rub a bit against the shell. Apparently, we have the same issue with the R353P. I don't think it is as alarming as the 503, but it's present here. You can see the A button is starting to accumulate some dust. And since I'm talking about the face buttons, I loved how silent they are. This is actually common on Anbernic devices. This one is just more silent than usual. Just to compare, here the SN30 Pro. Yeah, it's quite loud. But don't let it fool you, this 8-bit dock controller is awesome. Another thing worth mentioning, the build quality is excellent. Being an Anbernic device, we have high expectations about the build quality. This one does not disappoint, and the shell and buttons, everything fits really well. And I say that because of the RG503. The first impressions video I made, I mentioned the build quality is not that great. Especially for an Anbernic device. There's some leftover plastic on the shell and the whole thing just doesn't feel great. On the 353, feels like Anbernic went back to its origins. It looks and feels very nice. And for you to have an idea of the size, it's pretty much the same size of the PS Vita. And here with the RG351P. And when you press the power button, it boots automatically on Linux. It does have dual boot and you can use Android. I'll show you how to change OS in a minute. And we have this interface here, the emulation station. On it, you have several retro systems, as you can see here. To start a game, all you need to do is to choose a system, select a game, and press the A button to start. And as you can see, it starts pretty fast. And it's simple as that. Once you get the device, you just turn it on and start playing right away. Normally, when I'm setting up RetroArch, I use the Select as my hotkey, but here is already pre-configured for the F button. Pressing F goes into the RetroArch menu. F and R1 saves the game. F and L1 load. F and R2 shows the FPS up here. F and A pause the emulation. Anyway, there's several shortcuts that can help you with the navigation. As I noted on the unboxing, the whole list is in the manual. To leave this game, you just press F and start. And we're back on the emulation station menu. Now, what if I want to boot Android instead? To do that on a 552, I had to turn off the device, remove the second card, and turn it on again to boot Android. They made things a lot easier on the 353. You just need to press the F button and keep it pressed, and press the reset button. Just keep pressing the F button. When you see the white Anbernic logo, you can let go of the button. If the Anbernic logo is red, it means it's gonna boot in Linux instead. And that's the interface we have for Android. It's Android 11 and most people will be familiar with it. You can drag the screen up to have access to your apps. It already comes with some apps and emulators installed, like the RetroArch here. And look at this, even the Dolphin emulator and the Ether SX2 for PlayStation 2. Just don't get your hopes too high, okay? These two systems do not work well on this device. Maybe it's interesting just to do a few tests. They don't run well at all. I think it's important to mention that we don't have Google services here. There's no Play Store installed. You're gonna have one extra step side loading your apps. And since it doesn't have Google services, some apps won't work, like the Game Pass app for the xCloud. When you open it, it says your app won't run without Google services. Or will it? If you hit OK a few times and insist it, the app will actually open. Once in a while, that message will pop up for you. But that's it, you just hit OK, choose a game, and yes, you will be able to play xCloud on this device. The only thing I don't really enjoy is the Nintendo layout of the device. On the Xbox controller is the other way around. It's B here and A here, Y is here and the X here. Depending on the game, you'll be able to remap the buttons. Another thing you'll be able to do is to stream from your PC with the Moonlight app or Steam Link. I have an AMD GPU, so I'll use Steam Link. Once it's open and configured, you just hit play. Now I have access to all games installed on my PC. Now let's talk about the display. When I opened the game, I noticed how the pixels are blurred. I didn't know what was going on, so I decided to investigate to find the source of the problem. I found an option on the emulation station menu. You press start, go to game settings. There's this option here, smooth games, and it's turned on by default. I just turned it off and went back to the game. And what a difference. Now they're all squared and sharp. But now to compare the display, I decided to use the RG351V. It has the exact same size screen, 3.5 inches, the exact same resolution, 640 by 480, and the exact same ratio, 4 by 3. And both devices are at maximum brightness. And on this quick comparison, I noticed both screens are very similar. It just looks like the 353 has a bit more brightness, but I still think the 351V is the best one. I can see the colors with more details here, as you can see here with the green and even the blue of the mountains. So despite the 353 display being very nice, I still prefer the 351V. Now let's check the performance of a few systems. The Anbernic RG353P is the company's second console with the RK3566 chip, the first being the RG503. And as I mentioned in the first impressions video I made, I think we're gonna see several handheld consoles with this chip on the market, both from Anbernic and Palkitty. And while my first impressions of the RG503 weren't very good, those of the RG353P were quite the opposite. Starting off with better build quality and better finish than the 503. It looks like Anbernic has gone back to its origins with this one. 2 GB of RAM makes a big difference here. In addition to helping performance of some systems, it allows smoother navigation on Android. And this is another plus point. We now have dual boot with Android and Linux. And although with a little more memory we would have a better experience with this OS, it's perfectly usable. We're still missing Google services, but I'm hopeful Anbernic will release an update fixing this. We also have improved performance on systems like Nintendo 64, Dreamcast and PSP, making this handheld attractive to many people. And I can't forget to mention the nostalgia factor here. With this really cool Super Nintendo controller style, it's sure to make any lover of retro consoles drool a little. So if you like the RG353P and you're thinking about picking one up, the link is in the description below. Buying with this link, you don't pay anything extra and you'll help the channel to keep bringing content to you. Before you go, if you think this video was useful to you in any way, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing for more content like this one. Once again, Gilly here from the Retro Oasis. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.